What's going on, YouTube family? So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Today, instead of talking movies, I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales, which has only been out for going on a week, I think, a week tomorrow. So about 6 days. Was released on the PS4, the launch edition, and released on PS5. And I think you had the choice of the launch edition on PS5 or the Ultimate Edition. So I went ahead and pre-ordered the PS5 Ultimate Edition, even though I wasn't able to get a PlayStation 5 just yet. I was deployed when all of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X pre-orders and stuff was going on, so I missed that. So I went ahead and picked up the Ultimate Edition on PS5, and I went ahead and picked up the PS4 version, the launch edition, because I wanted to play this game so bad. I didn't know about this game, honestly, when the predecessor Spider-Man PS4 or Spider-Man 2018, whatever you want to call it, when that came out. I had been following that. They had been talking about it because I remember the rumors around that. Like, we didn't know if it was true. And then eventually they did come out and say Insomniac Games was producing the game. And then we got a teaser trailer, and then it didn't come out for like another year and a half to 2 years. And I remember that game came out like the weekend before I got married. So it was just a crazy time in my life, everything that was going on. So I was really worried going into this game that due to the fact that it's more of a launch title, it is cheaper than the original. Like I said, the launch edition on PS4, I think it's like $49.99. When Spider-Man PS4 came out, it was like $59.99, $60. And then I think they had an Ultimate Edition. They had all this other stuff. So I was a little bit worried that maybe because of that, and then due to, the presence of Peter Parker, that they would basically, overshadow Miles' solo take. And I was wrong about that. So minor spoilers, not really if you have seen the trailers. Peter Parker isn't really in this game that much. He appears in one mission in the beginning of the game. And then he appears at the very end of the game, once the main campaign has been completed. And in all honesty, I think that was appropriate because, the fact of the matter is when Miles Morales originally was created in 2011, he's only been like around as a character for going on like 10 years, next year. When he originally was created, Miles was not existent in the Prime 616 universe. Miles was an alternate version in the Ultimate Earth 1610. And he basically was replacing the Peter Parker of that universe who had been killed by the Green Goblin. So the fact that it's always a little, whenever they announce some kind of Miles Morales project, I'm always a little bit nervous because I always think, is it going to be kind of like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in like the comic that Miles was introduced in, where he's basically taking the place of Peter Parker after Peter Parker has died? Or is it going to be kind of more built on the 616 Prime Spider-Man, where it's like he's existing alongside Peter Parker? And that's what happens in this game. If anybody played the previous game, they teased this game, but it still to me came out of nowhere because Miles does get bit by the spider in the previous game. This game came out of nowhere for me, and the fact that he does operate alongside, Peter Parker Spider-Man, it doesn't take away from it because of the way this game is written, the way that Peter Parker isn't overshadowing Miles, and I really dug that. So to speak a little bit about the gameplay, it was dope to see that it felt like we were in the same New York as the predecessor, the previous game, but setting it around Christmas time, setting it around, the winter time, and, it's snowing in the game. It just feels like the same New York, but it feels like a different flavor. It doesn't feel like a copy and paste. And I think the guys over in Insomniac are geniuses for doing that. I think that's why the winter aspect played into this game a little bit. Because I remember when they were talking about the sequel to Spider-Man PS4, a lot of people on YouTube were saying, "Oh, it's going to be set in the snow and all of this stuff," and we now come to find out that it wasn't necessarily the sequel; it was the spinoff starring Miles. So I dug that, you guys. I think it found a way to be similar, but also very different with the snow setting, the wintertime setting. Also, just the genius way that they Miles feels like more of an amateur Spider-Man. Like at this point in the game, minor spoilers, he's only been Spider-Man for about a year compared to the previous game with Peter Parker, who had been Spider-Man for 8 years. So he feels like a more advanced Spider-Man. You know, some of the things that Peter's able to do, Miles isn't able to do. He's able to do some similar things, but not on the same level. And I also think this improves on the game because it would make no sense if they gave us a Spider-Man game where Miles just out the gate is as strong as Peter. He knows how to do things as great as Peter. So the swinging mechanics, I think they improved on them a lot. And I do like the fact that Miles swinging, he actually feels more like an amateur Spider-Man. Like, I don't know if this was like some kind of glitch. I'm pretty sure it's not, but I was playing the game like 2 days ago and I was swinging and I actually like landed on a rooftop and I actually crashed and kind of like fell. I haven't seen anybody else talk about that on YouTube. I haven't seen any other gameplay about that, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't a glitch. Like I was swinging and somehow like it's like he lost his footing and fell. And I think that's awesome. You know, it is grounded in a little bit of reality. It makes a little bit more sense. We have this character, this version of Spider-Man who hasn't been doing it that long, so he's going to struggle. He does at times feel like, you know, is he worthy to be Spider-Man? You know, he gets compared to the original. You know, there's in the beginning of the game, you know, he kind of is living in the shadow a little bit of Peter Parker because Peter Parker has been Spider-Man for so long in this universe compared to Miles. It seems like a lot of people think that he's just some kind of pretender. Another thing with the gameplay, with the Venom Blast and Miles being able to go invisible or camouflage, wherever you want to call it, I think it makes up for the fact that Peter is more advanced in his movements of Spider-Man, and I think it more than makes up for Miles being an amateur Spider-Man because of the fact, like, there's things Miles can do that Peter can't do. Like I said, the Venom Blast, they incorporated that in the comic books the way, you know, I've been reading Miles comics for a long time, and mostly all I ever see with the Venom Blast is Miles touches somebody, similar to how he did in Into the Spider-Verse, and he just shocks them or something. In this one, they incorporate that into the gameplay. Like, instead of just Venom blasting, he can Venom punch. When you're swinging around the city, he can do this kind of Venom jump where when you're swinging, you can press a combination of buttons and it actually makes Miles glide a little bit into the air to give him more altitude. I think that's awesome. There's some things that they do with the combat system that I'm not going to really spoil that, you know, Miles is able to do. And I just think it's awesome. It improved on the comics with Miles Morales. It improved on, you know, the game. It acts as a spinoff to Spider-Man PS4. And the way it ended, not going to spoil it, I liked that it gave Miles his own villains. That, you know, it didn't just seem like he was taking all on Peter's villains. There are some, you know, villains unique to Miles in this game. And also, it improves on, you know, some of the villains from the first game. You know, there's some things it's affected by the first game, like with the Devil's Breath and the all of that kind of stuff plays into this game. And I thought that was awesome. So the way it ended, I feel like it more set up the sequel for Spider-Man PS4, but also, you know, maybe potentially we'll get a, you know, Miles Morales Spider-Man, you know, 2 sequel to this game. And I hope for 2 things with this, you guys. I hope that maybe they find a way to add Miles into the Spider-Man PS4 sequel, like with the first one. Miles had a couple playable elements, but he wasn't Spider-Man. So I hope that they do that and maybe give us a couple of missions where we can play as Miles, or maybe they go the route of fully incorporating a system where it's like, okay, like GTA 5, where we could switch between Miles and Peter Parker, but still have story elements relative to both of their stories. I think that would be awesome, but I would rather see Miles be playable in the sequel to Spider-Man PS4, which is Peter's story, and then we get a sequel to this game, because I think there's a lot of potential. The same way with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which incorporated so many other versions of Spider-Man, so many other versions of Peter Parker, but at the heart of it, it was a Miles Morales Spider-Man story. So I hope we get a sequel to this game, you guys. I hope Miles appears in the sequel to Spider-Man PS4, which will probably be Peter Parker's story. So you guys, this game is awesome. If you haven't played it, check it out. Whether, like I said, if you couldn't get your hands, or maybe you pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition like me, you weren't able to get your PS5, it's still dope on PS4. It doesn't feel cheap. The graphics even improve a little bit on the PS4 version, and I've seen screenshots and videos of the PS5 version. It's still fun to me, you guys. It didn't hurt me to buy the game twice, because I was looking forward to it, and now I look forward to playing it with the better graphics. So, and before I close, I hope they do something similar with this game like they did with Spider-Man PS4, and give us some DLC which expands on the main story. So I hope for that, you guys. I'll catch you guys in a future video. If there's any more games that come out that I want to check out, like the new Call of Duty and those things, I'll do that. But I probably won't talk any more new video games, until I get my PS5. Maybe I'll talk about some old video games, some of my favorites on PS4. But look forward to me talking more video games when I get PS5. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you guys. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.